Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to present to you the report on the progress of the delivery plan of Education's digital learning strategy, which was approved at Council in May 23 and runs parallel to Clackmannanshire Council's digital strategy 2019 to 2025. This report captures the progress made in our schools and establishments between May 23 and September 2024. The priorities of the digital learning strategy align with the objectives of the Scottish Government's digital learning and teaching strategy for Scotland and are noted in our delivery plan as follows. To further develop the skills and confidence of all educators in the adequate and effective use of digital technology, to improve access and remote access to a range of digital technology for all learners, to ensure that digital technology is evident in all areas of curriculum design, delivery and assessment, and to empower leaders to drive forward and further develop innovation and investment in digital technology. In the period between May 2023 and September 2024, there's been significant progress in each of these four areas, as noted in the full report in Appendix 1. Some key highlights are a digital working group has been established with representatives from our ELCs, primary and secondary schools. This group has been pivotal in driving forward the use of technology and sharing resources and good practice across Clackmannanshire. Each establishment has a digital lead who is a key point of contact for tracking progress of the aims of the digital learning strategy, alongside the dissemination of professional learning opportunities pertaining to digital technologies, and has been instrumental in the continued deployment of the digital device rollout, which to date has seen 6,447 individual Chromebooks and 1,285 iPads issued to children and young people to enable them to access digital technology to support their learning. All children in Primary 3 now have their own iPads. An evaluation of the one-to-one rollout was undertaken in May 2024 with our children, young people and school staff, and examples of the positive feedback are noted on page 5 of the report, which is page 137 in your papers. There are an average of 800 to 900 Google Classrooms live every day in Clackmannanshire, enabling learners and staff to share classwork, homework, assignments, ideas and suggestions. 34 teachers and support staff have undertaken Google certified training through Education Scotland, and Clackmannanshire was highlighted nationally at a meeting of Glow Key Contacts as having the highest number of Chrome extensions enabled using our Glow tenancy. This demonstrates that we are leading the way in terms of functionality and tools to support our learners, enabling them to access additional learning opportunities with Chrome extensions such as Natural Reader, a text-to-speech tool, ReaderView to support visual impairment, Equate.io to enable the use of mathematical formulae in documents, Colour Veil to allow learners to add their own customised colour filter over any document or website, which supports those with dyslexia or visual stress, and Lego Education to support coding and STEM learning. Clackmannanshire staff have worked as part of the Forth Valley West Lothian Regional Improvement Collaborative on the implementation of the Artificial Intelligence Lesson Planning tool, which was launched in May 2024. This tool supports learning primarily in the broad general education, and our data shows that it's been used by practitioners over 6,000 times to date. Feedback has been captured and can be found on page 3, which is page 135 in your papers. These are just some of the examples of the progress made thus far. Year 2 of the delivery plan will ensure that work continues at pace and will include focus on the expansion of family learning programmes to mitigate inequity of support at home, raise parent-carer awareness of the use of digital technologies that schools and establishments are using and how to support their children, explore further opportunities for how digital technologies can be further used as part of assessment and curriculum delivery, to support all our establishments in achieving their Digital Skills Award, to create detailed skills progression pathways for the coverage of digital technologies in partnership with college. These actions will be reported on in the next annual report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much. Any questions? Councillor Gorson?
Yeah, I've got 3 different questions, if you don't mind. The first one is, as you highlighted there, the Regional Improvement Collaboratives allows the ability to kind of collaborate with other local authorities on digital priorities. These have since been disbanded by the Scottish Government, so I'm just wondering, does that then throw up any challenges, or are we able to continue with some of that collaboration work?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's absolutely not lost on us that we are actually losing the RICS, but what we're not losing is the work that we've been doing, and we're gaining traction and momentum, the practice that we're sharing, and also the connections and partnerships that we have with other authorities are going to remain, so we have got plans for sustainability for that.
Okay, my next question is around AI. This is particularly interesting me, and it was interesting to read in the report that practitioners have been using it. And I think AI is a wonderful tool. However, it seems to be that students aren't able to utilise it at the moment. It's quite frowned upon in relation to kind of the work that they might produce. However, having attended a number of university open days with my son recently, there's a very different feeling about AI from universities. They see it as an absolute key tool moving forward, and they're actually encouraging the use of it. So I'm just wondering how we're going to build AI into our curriculum to ensure that when young people move on from our schools to uni, there's not a gap there.
Yeah, thanks for that. We absolutely agree with that, and what we have to make sure though is that our staff are skilled and knowledgeable in what they're doing before they ensure that they're able to support young people to do that too. All of our schools now have a representative who's going to be a Gemini champion, so they're going to work together. They've all signed up to like 3 separate workshop sessions where they'll be trained up in that as well. And absolutely, young people know they're very skilled, they're very adept. It's not like it will be used to them. They probably will be able to inform their teachers of quite a lot of the work that's involved, but we have absolutely taken cognizance of this. We are only reporting on year 1 of our strategy. The delivery plan will continue to focus on this for year 2, so that this will be something that will be very much featured.
And my last question is around about mobile phones. I know my son's at Alloa Academy, and they have introduced a mobile phone policy for students. And I'm just wondering how this might impact, or if it does impact on the digital strategies, because as we all know, young people use their phones for so much. I know my son would have taken a picture of, the board for kind of homework, or would have used his phone in relation to kind of searching for things, etc. So I'm just wondering whether there's a bit of collaboration around about the policies that are maybe implemented by separate schools and how this might impact on this strategy.
Yeah, it's one of these things that divides opinion, really, doesn't it, as well? I completely understand that. And the argument about using your phone to take a picture is a very valid one. The whole purpose and premise behind the digital rollout was to reduce inequity in the classroom. And therefore, it was really important that all young people are not in a position where their friends might have the latest smartphone, but they don't. So it really was to mitigate against that, was to have everybody having the opportunity to use technology in a fair and equitable way. However, that does obviously then beg the question, why are we not keeping up with the times as well, if that's something that people would do? So it's a difficult one to enforce. Parents feel very strongly about having their young people have their phones. We try and promote that in the classroom they're not used specifically when there's no need for them to be out and to be used. They can absolutely look up Google. They have all the resources they can have on their Chromebook. We do also have live Google Classrooms as well. So everybody in the room can share resource with each other, and it can be done remotely as well. So I would argue that there's not really a need for them to have their mobile phone in class. But that's not to say we won't be looking at that further in the second year of our strategy.
Okay, I think this is excellent. I mean, I see it with my own grandchildren, so it's fantastic to see this operating. But I was really interested in, obviously after COVID, and we saw what happened during COVID and why we needed all this, but Since COVID, we've been left with long COVID for a lot of young people, and it's been reported strongly. So I was really encouraged to see that this enables young people still to engage when they're unwell, which is great because they're not. It used to be if young people had something like chronic fatigue syndrome or whatever, they were months before they missed their education. And I was just wondering, really, on the take up of that and if it's been successful moving forwards.
Yeah, thank you. COVID obviously was the catalyst for accelerating all of this, but what we've been left with is the recognition that absolutely we are ahead of the game with the technology that we're using, and it is absolutely vital for young people who, for whatever reason, are not able to access the classroom physically, are able to still access their learning online. We've also been working with our virtual head teacher, who's currently in Nashville, but he's been instrumental in being able to work with a group of young people who've disengaged entirely from the curriculum and been able to get them through digital qualifications as well. So we have, at the moment, we've got 20 young people who are in that position. And so we can see the progress that we're making with the engagement. What we hope to do in year 2 of the action plan is to look at how we can improve the use of digital technology for assessment, and also how we can expand how we use it as a learning tool as well, because we're always learning, and the relationships that we've made across the Regional Improvement Collaborative will continue, as I said, so we'll be continuing to share good practice with them as well.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a great way to promote EDI as well, so it's excellent. Yes, thank you. Yes, Councillor Coyne.
Thanks, Chair. On page 4 of your report, you say staff from the Open University have linked with Clickman and Shout Council, etc., etc. Is that unique to us? Are we the only ones that that's happened to, or are we just the latest member to join the queue?
You're just very innovative in our thinking, I think that's what it is. And we knew that the Open University offer more opportunities than we were actually using. So we asked if we could kind of liaise with them about what options we could offer, because there's a lot of untapped resource that we can use there, and it's really important that young people, for example, a young person who perhaps is going to study art at university, but actually would benefit from doing some particular prep work that they can use themselves alongside maybe an advanced hire. So they can go on the Open University and look at additional work that they can do there as well. Now that was obviously conveyed to us when we met, so it's been a really useful link. We do link with the Open University anyway through schools, through the Young Applicants in Schools scheme, but that tends to be for a specific age group. We were hoping that we could introduce it earlier, and the Open University were very open to that, open to that idea that they could do that from 3rd year upwards as well. So that's been a really important development. Yeah.
And over on page 5 of your report, talking about the primary schools that signed up. Oh, right, sorry. Page 5, yeah. Page 5, talking about primary schools signing up to Speak Up, Stay Safe. Obviously, quite an important programme. Now, 12 is 2/3 of the primary schools, I understand, in the county. What's being done to encourage the other 6 to participate?
Yes, it's too low. We're working with the schools that have already signed up with that, and we're sharing that learning so that they can make sure that their peer schools are doing the same. It's not something that we would want anybody to be opting out of. This is just too important. So this is a priority moving forward for year 2.
And on the same page, at the bottom, the last comment from a primary head would welcome further professional learning. Has a sort of cost-benefit analysis been done on that? Is that something you would take forward?
We have widened the professional learning opportunities. We have worked quite closely with Education Scotland to make sure that there's additional professional learning available as we develop the different techniques and strategies that we're using. And the way of digital technology, we're trying to pair that up with professional learning at the same time. We've got a digital lead, David Kay, who works very closely as a global key contact to make sure that we have these additional opportunities for our staff as well to learn. So they don't always cost, but we're making sure that we're looking at the Inspiration Hub, for example, and Education Scotland's progress on that to make sure that we can encourage staff to tap into that professional learning. Yeah.
Thank you. And finally, Chair, I mean, as we rush to embrace digital technology, are we also mindful of the important part of, one-to-one learning, face-to-face learning, I should say, rather than one-to-one? That I think that the ability to communicate on a personal level is very important, getting through life as well as embracing digital technology. And do we deliberately try to maintain the right balance in our schools?
Absolutely, our teachers are very skilled, and nobody would suggest that digital technology should be replacing anything in direct teaching. It enhances the work that is done in schools, and that can only be a good thing. It means we're moving with the times, but it also means that there's additional skills that young people are needing. And when they go on to the next pathway, whatever that is, they're able to use the skills that they've worked with in school. But no, it does not replace the need for direct teaching, and that's hugely important because communication is another key skill that our young people need, and the social development for that is really important.
Good, thanks for that.
Councillor Brooks-Ellie.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could give me some examples of how the digital learning strategy has extended the choice in terms of the curriculum, and particularly within the context of GovVec.
Do you mean in relation to subject choice, for example?
Yeah, choice and different learning opportunities that previously wouldn't been able to look at if it wasn't for digital technology.
Yeah, we're rolling out our consortia arrangement across our academies. I mean, this is something that we do anyway. They're in close enough vicinity with each other, but to make it even more streamlined, they can access social subjects. We're doing a pilot with geography, so that, for example, if a young person is studying advanced higher geography in one school, but it's not actually running as a full class, because the numbers being so low, we'll link up the schools together so that there can be one teacher, for example, delivering geography at advanced higher, so that all schools can take part in that. The plan would be that would be rolled out across other subjects as well. The logistics make it really doable. We're only dipping our toe in the water with it at the moment, but again, that's a big part of what Year 2 is. As I mentioned earlier, our focus really is how we're going to enhance learning and teaching with digital use for Year 2 of our strategy, and also how we're going to see how we can use assessment, digital for assessment as well. So again, this will be a focus that we can report on in our next annual report.
I was wondering specifically, with a diverse population now, whether there was digital was helping in particularly the secondary schools in relation to languages like Chinese or Ukrainian or anything along those sort of lines.
Yeah, one of our Chrome extensions that I mentioned that we were given credit for was Google Translate. And now, as a modern languages teacher myself, Google Translate has a place. It's not going to replace the teacher, but it's a really useful tool, particularly for our refugee population and those learners for English as an additional language as well. So we obviously have the opportunity to be able to use these as well, and online dictionaries, etc., make a real difference to them. So, yeah, I think it does bridge the gap, absolutely, and reduce equity for our learners who perhaps might not otherwise be able to access certain courses.
Yes, so we have the opportunities, but do we have any examples of that in our schools at the moment?
Yeah, the work that the refugee team does with the EAL learners very clearly shows that they would find the curriculum difficult to access if they didn't have these additional tools. So we do, I haven't got the numbers, but certainly know the numbers that do work across our EAL services do link very closely with the refugee team, and these are extensions that are used and evaluated so that we can report on the fact that they have been effective and impactful.
Thanks.
Councillor Benny.
Thanks, Chair. Just a small thing. The virtual head teacher, I know, is working constantly and is doing a really good job. How is the pupils who are being aided by the virtual head teacher, are they, are some of them now actually going to school full time, or are they still at that virtual age?
We're engaging the services of virtual head teacher with a view to the young people engaging in school, but we have to be realistic about the fact that there can be a myriad reasons why a young person isn't engaging. And mental health is a crucial factor. Some young people have such anxiety that actually getting over the door is really, really difficult for them to do. But obviously that would be our aim, is that we would want them to engage physically with school, but equally we don't want to find that that barrier is stopping them from progressing. So what we're able to do is mixed. We can get some back into school depending on where they are and their own health and circumstances, with additional support obviously as well, or we have to accept that some young people will still find that a struggle, but that isn't a barrier to gaining qualifications, and that's when we can absolutely tap into the effectiveness of the digital technologies to be able to access national degrees and some national floors.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm very happy to move this paper. I recently returned to university as a very mature student, and one of the things that I noted was the level of digital that's involved in that, in terms of every course has got massive complex digital materials that you have to access. So this preparation from a very young age is really essential to ensure that young people are ready to move on to further education if that's their choice. So I think it's really excellent to see this going on, but actually way back when we first started putting digital into place at the pandemic, I was so encouraged by how quickly Clip Manager moved. And Clip Manager, I think, was way ahead with the number of young people that had access to education still while we were going through the pandemic. But I hope that wouldn't just stop, and I'm really, really encouraged to see that it's continuing on, because I also know the high level of intense anxiety that we're dealing with in our young people at the moment, for all sorts of different reasons. So it's really good that they're able to still access their education. Years gone by, they would have been basically just disengaged. They wouldn't have managed to achieve any qualifications. Their potential in life would have been challenged. So for them to be able to have this ability to do this is just absolutely excellent, I think. And it also creates a sense of equality, because there are so many young people in our communities who literally can't afford these kind of digital appliances. So it's really, really important for them to have that opportunity as well, so that they can have equality with their peers. So really, really encouraged to see this, excited to see this paper, so glad things are moving forward. Yeah, and I agree with Councillor Forson in terms of the AI thing, that's really moving forward at the uni level. But also, I totally take on board what you're saying, that teachers have to have that knowledge, because it's also really important you don't plagiarise with AI. So they need to know, don't just fire in with using AI. It's like you've got to make sure you're not plagiarising as well. So all of that, and I'm really happy to propose this paper. Looking for a seconder, Councillor Forson. We'll be in a double team.
Yeah, happy to second the paper. As Janine was saying, it's so important that we have a strategy for this issue, because it's going to play such a huge part in our young people's lives moving forward, not only in higher or further education, but in the workplace. Everything's getting done by a phone or a tablet, or online, and giving our young people the skills and abilities to interact on that basis is so important. There are so many areas that are positive, and it's really good that they're highlighted. I do think that we have to be quite cognizant that we don't undermine kind of strategies with different policies that maybe interact or can hinder. In relation to the RIC, I'm pleased that we're able to kind of continue the collaboration work that was going on there, because I think it's only by sharing with kind of peers and other local authorities that we learn and that we can move on, and it's just got such an important part to play. I'm kind of going to go back to the police report there, where they were talking about kind of changes in crimes, and digital crimes are a big thing. So I'm really hopeful that we're equipping our young people with the tools to deal with the challenges that can come in relation to that. Because it's something that they face on a daily basis. Having a young person in school just now, they're forever on their phones at home, on WhatsApp groups, or Google Classroom's another one where they all go on and kind of share a lot of information. So I imagine that keeping on top of that can be quite a challenging, kind of thing for our staff to pick up on. And it's just another burden that goes on top of all the other duties that everybody has to do. So good report. It's good to see the progress, but I think we need to keep on top of it, because as soon as we've done something, digital technology has moved on, and so it's just a constant, I think, journey there. So yeah.
You're open to debate. Anybody want to come in? No? Happy to note. Excellent, thank you. We'll now move on to item 8, which is the Health and Safety Annual Report 2023-24. So we have Alison here.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm pleased to present to you the Health and Safety Annual Report for the period 2023-24. By way of context in the paper, the Council has a legal duty to ensure the health and safety of its employees. This report presents the significant work which has been undertaken over the period in maintaining this. Committee are asked to note the progress being made against the actions of both the Wellbeing Strategy, originally approved in December 2022, and the Health and Safety Strategy for the period 2022 to 2025, which was also approved in 2022, as well as a range of supportive work being undertaken by the Health and Safety team. Of particular interest to members of the committee will be the progress made against identifying and supporting risk assessments across all council services, with a total of 1,254 risk assessments being completed and recorded on the Audit's health and safety system, allowing for greater integration, interrogation of health and safety data and trends moving forward, and as a result, more targeted interventions. The report does, however, highlight a number of areas where development is still required, not least with uptake of mandatory training, as we have discussed at previous meetings of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee, where this remains a challenge for us. Lastly, committee are asked to note that for 2023-24, no enforcement action was taken against the Council by the HSE, and the incident rate within the Council sits at 1/4 of the average for UK public administration organisations. Moving forward, the report outlines priority areas of action for the corporate health and safety team, including undertaking a robust audit programme of site visits, which is already now underway, in addition to progressing bespoke pieces of work, such as a follow-up to the 2022 Behavioural Safety Culture Study, and development of a skills matrix to aid in future health and safety training plans. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, as is Shoreditch, the Council's Health and Safety Manager, who joins me today.
Yes, thank you. We're open to questions. Councillor Borson.
Yeah, I want to ask some questions around about figure 1, the top 10 incident types in 23-24. The table quite worryingly highlights that the highest kind of types of incidents were physical assaults. Those statistics are quite stark for me, and then when I read the blurb above, we've got 90% of these taking place within educational establishments. That's quite significant, and I know there's been some national attention around about this, but seeing it, kind of in Portmanshire is quite concerning. So I suppose I'm looking for a bit of background on when these kind of assaults, etc., happen. What coping mechanisms are there for the staff who are impacted in relation to these? What steps are taken to address them? Because a physical assault for me is quite a serious thing, and I'm certainly not seeing, exclusions, etc., at school on the same level as we're seeing, kind of physical assaults against educational staff. So I'm just looking for a bit of reassurance that when these assaults are happening, what level are they? What steps are being taken to address it then and there, and then for the future, obviously to protect our staff, but there's young people involved in this as well, and I'm just looking for a bit of assurance there.
I think in answering that question, I'll hand over to Shonich, who'll be able to give a perspective from the corporate side of the work of the health and safety team. But I believe, having Colin come up and join us, he may also want to come in from the educational side as well.
Yeah, so a physical assault can be anything from a child who's maybe got some coordination difficulties that maybe isn't full control of their limbs, hitting somebody, to a full-on attack at a member of staff, so that it can be anything in between, and the number of the more serious assaults are thankfully relatively low. Over 40% of the incidents within educational establishments take place in settings dedicated to our additional support needs pupils. Put that into context. And it's slightly harder to quantify, but we know that there is a significant proportion of the rest of them that are from pupils with additional support needs that are being supported in mainstream settings. What happens when there is any incident is, first of all, we need to deal with the incident. So if there's first aid required, then that's obviously provided. But also there is a process in place afterwards where members of staff are given the opportunity to debrief with an appropriate member. Where necessary, we also get involvement from other agencies such as our psychological team, our inclusion team, social work staff. They are all included in meetings to help look at that. We also have support available through our employee assistance programme, so referrals can be made to the likes of them as well to provide additional support where that is needed.
Yeah, so if I could just pick up the bit about staff, so we're really proactive more than ever to make sure staff are recording incidents. So that encouragement's there because we need to understand it and we need to look into each and every matter and make sure staff and young people are supported equally. To pick up the point about the additional support needs, we've got young people staying in Clackmannanshire schools and staying in Clackmannanshire homes that might have not been in the authority from previous, or might have been staying with folks at home but not getting to an educational establishment. And we're doing absolutely our utmost to keep young people with really complex needs locally in our schools. So I'm thinking Lockheads, I'm thinking extended additional support needs being a couple. And in that, there's young people there that find it and behave in ways that is leading to the recording of these violence and aggression forms. But it does jump out to me as if that is deliberately somebody being violent, and in a lot of the cases when you see it as could be a kid picking up 20 of these incidents from some of their behaviours and movements that do lead to staff being hurt at times, which is really sad and really serious. But just to give you a bit of background of that, the percent that Shona shared there, we'll continue to see high numbers, I think, because we'll continue to record it and be really committed to doing that. But we have to make sure our staff are trained and all the sort of readiness for learning strategies that we've done in support with our EP team do make a difference, but it's something that is a continual need for us to address. The other areas that we do see high numbers of the forms being filled out, ELC establishments moving into early years in primary. And I think that has, you could say we're recording more, but it's also a change in behaviour of young people in these stages coming out of COVID that's not been a quick fix, but something that we're actually really committed to work with our families and our children to make sure we do. Things that we've done to try to resolve that is we've now got over 18 primaries, we've now got 6 of them with flexible learning spaces with very low numbers in that space, where a young person possibly with autism and possibly picking up some of these violence and aggression incidents, but they're supported in a really highly intensive space with skilled staff. So we're trying to move some of the actual strategies we're doing in school to meet the need, but the need is very much in our schools and not getting put to other places. I hope that gives a bit of detail to it.
Does, it would be interesting for me to get some information on how we're comparing with other local authorities in relation to this, just so I can put a bit of context, because those figures just jump out at you, don't they? And you don't want us to be taken out of context or making it seem like there's a problem here if I suppose any kind of assaults are an issue. But that kind of wider context would be helpful.
Certainly, I know from the groups that I sit on, it is an issue nationally, and I can get some more detail from you to help understand that.
We recently almost commissioned, as part of the Regional Improvement Collaborative, Ian McGee has led a group that's really looked into relationships in schools. And I think it will eventually lead to a review of our policies regarding relationships. But in it has been really key information of, is our resources meeting that needs and the needs of additional support needs? And that's just one aspect of it. But that will all come to the Children and Young Persons Board, some of the findings of that and some of the areas that we need to address moving forward as well.
Just the last on that, are we finding there's been an uptick in this since COVID?
Yes, yeah.
Councillor Coyne?
Just to ask a rider to the discussion we've just been having, is it not logical to divide this chart into two, adults and children? Because we're not detecting the trends easily if we're comparing year on year, the trends in the adult world and the trends in the school world. I think there should just be two separate charts. I think it's silly to mix them up. Do you agree?
I think that's yes, and I think that's something we could look at for future reports.
I was just wanting to ask, in terms of the looking at the support there for individuals, because obviously within the report we're seeing a high level of mental health concerns coming forward within staff. I mean, that's been growing year on year, I think, and that's not anything that's relevant just to Clackmannanshire, that's across the whole country, and we see that everywhere. But in terms of the support given, I noticed there was actually, in comparison to the app, which is now a new app, I understand, not the previous one, the face-to-face support is really low compared to the app. Now, in mental health, studies have shown that really there's nothing that compares with face-to-face. I mean, the online resources can be a useful holding point, but they're not what tackles the underlying issues. So essentially, it's just a plaster on the wound. It doesn't really help somebody in the longer term. It's really just a holding point. But a lot of people are not taking up the mental health support. And I wonder, and face-to-face counselling and EMD are tiny. And I really wondered if it mentioned in the report that people were having to use their own budgets to access the counselling side. And I wondered if that was maybe why there was a low take-up, or whether it just was staff that people just weren't aware of it in the organisation, and that was why there was a low take-up. And just a follow-up on whether, like, rather than offer that within the council, because some people may not want to go forward because it's part of their employment, whether there could be an external third sector provider to offer that support.
So that support is provided by an external provider at the moment. It's through a company called People Asset Management. Although the council pays for it, vast majority of those referrals go through an employee making the approach themselves. And there is agreement at SLG level that the council will fund whatever is required to support that individual. So the council doesn't decide whether an employee gets EDMR or whatever the support might be. The council have agreed that we will pay for whatever is required. So the budget consideration shouldn't be part of that at all. What happens is once the employee is gone, even most of the managers will never find out who it is that they are supporting. We just get information that allows us to direct it to a budget code. We don't even find out who the individuals are necessarily ourselves.
That's good to hear. In terms of the the stress risk assessments. I noted there was 37 stress risk assessments had taken place, but we're obviously seeing a much higher level of mental health concerns. And usually I think the kind of approach is if anybody's presenting with mental health, there would be a stress risk assessment done. So I'm just wondering why the low presentation of stress risk assessments, but also in terms of the stress risk assessments, there was a discussion to move to online. They're a really challenging thing to do, stress risk assessments. I've done them with teams before, and I just wondered if moving to online is the right approach, because as Dennis was saying earlier, often there's not really a replacement for face-to-face in situations like this.
So in terms of the stress risk assessment process, that generally deals with work-related issues. And I think the biggest growth we've seen is in issues that aren't work-related, so things like bereavement, people having to cope with long-term illnesses of family members, and financial concerns, that kind of thing, which can't really be dealt with through the stress risk assessment process. There are other things that we're doing to help support that, though. In terms of the online part of it, the online part is only for the employee completing the initial questionnaire. After that, absolutely, there needs to be a person there that they speak to and go through that with, to make sure that what's been suggested is appropriate. It just helps with that initial gathering of information and then the initial analysis to go, right, okay, what is actually the problem, and therefore what can we then do to do to support that.
Thanks very much, that's really helpful. Councillor Coyne?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Page 10 of your report, R152, toolbox talks. Some of them haven't been delivered for at least 2 and possibly 3 years. I understand the reason at the bottom, you've got to get through. But my concern is new starts. There'll be some of the stuff that new starts may not have missed. Do you have a system in place whereby there's a tick list of these kind of toolbox talks that each new recruit should be exposed to or offered, so that you at least are being seen to put in their way, if you like, objective training?
It's not something that's in place at the moment, but is, or hasn't been historically, but is something that we're looking at both as part of the induction work that's ongoing at the moment, but also as part of the skills matrix to make sure we identify what is appropriate for each individual, and therefore, what would we expect to happen in the first month or so, what can happen in the first 3 months, and then, what's a longer term issue that we need to address. So it's not something that's been in place, but it's something that we're actively working on.
Well, you probably have to agree that it's an insurance risk, perhaps, not having something like that in place.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the paper. Although I sounded critical there, and apologies for that, it certainly wasn't my intention. I think it's excellent actually to see that come out so strongly in the report. I think a lot of reports on health and safety wouldn't consider the people issues and in terms of the wellbeing issues. So although it sounded a bit critical, I actually think it's really positive that you've got that so prevalent in the report, and also so transparently as well in what's being offered, while maintaining confidentiality of the team, which you were quite right to stress. And I think, it's a real sign of the council to show that it's not just all the physical issues that can happen within health and safety. The mental health concerns are becoming more and more prevalent, so I was really pleased to see that, but also, the fact that we're considering to look at, and there was an increase in risk assessments done, so, that had been an issue in previous reports. We're now seeing the risk assessments coming up to a really good level, and hopefully that will continue, and we'll get more forward with that. And it was really good to get the explanation as well about, because that was something I'd been concerned about the level of assault, so it was great to get that context from all of you in terms of what that means. But also that then leads on to a knock-on effect to what I was talking about in terms of the mental health concerns. So it's really, obviously really important for that to be part of that as well. So it's really good to see. I think, again, it's a report that's really transparent. It tells you the good and the bad, and it lets us as councillors be able to see what needs to be done. So really appreciate that and your time and effort put into answering the questions, so thank you. Anyone to second?
I'll formally second.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We're happy to vote the report. Thanks so much. Thank you for your time. Move on to item 9 on the agenda, Regulation of Investigatory Powers, Scotland Act 2000, and we have Edwin Patterson. Edwin, hi, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. This report updates the committee on the council's use of the regulation of the Investigatory Powers Scotland Act 2000, known as RIPSA. In limited circumstances, it may be necessary for council officers in the course of their duties to make observations of a person in a covert manner, i.e. without that person's knowledge. Such actions are potentially deemed intrusive and may give rise to legal challenge. RIPSA was introduced to make sure that such surveillance was properly regulated and ensure compliance with human rights legislation. There are statutory codes of practice which sit alongside this Act. The Council has a RIPSA policy in place, along with staff guidance and standard forms which are required to be completed and authorised by the authorising officers before anything happens. The authorising officers are the Chief Exec and the 3 directors. The Council is subject to an inspection of its use of RIPSA powers every 3 years, regardless of any authorisations. And this is by an inspector from the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office. Next inspection is due in June 2025. I would ask the committee to note consideration 3.3 that no authorisations were requested or granted by the Council under RIPSA since the last inspection in 22, and consideration 3.5 that training for the authorising officers and the coordinating officer is required before the next inspection. Happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions? Oh, no, okay. Happy to formally move the paper. Would anyone like to second? Sorry. You second, Martha, thanks very much. We're now open to debate. Would anyone like to debate the paper? No. Apologies again, we're not debating the paper. So we're happy to formally note? Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you for your time. Okay, so we're now going to item 10, Partnership and Performance 2023-24 Year-End Business Plan Update. Following this paper, in view of the fact that we're trying to separate out audit and scrutiny in the committee, we'll take a break. So we'll take our lunch break after this paper and then we'll come back and start the audit part. So just to make you aware of that. Okay, so I shall hand over to the team.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee members. The paper presented asks committee to note, comment and challenge the year-end update on the 23-24 Partnership and Performance Business Plan. The Partnership and Performance portfolio continues to deliver a diverse range of statutory and essential support functions, including emergency resilience, HR, payroll, finance, revenues, ICT, communications, governance and legal services. The portfolio plays a critical role in supporting both the Council's business as usual activities and the broader transformation objectives within the Be the Future programme. Significant progress has been made in several areas during 23-24, but we do recognise that ongoing challenges such as capacity issues, recruitment difficulties and increasing service demands, including unplanned work, continue to impact our performance, which has resulted in some of our ambitions for 23-24 not being met, and as a result have had to be carried into our business plan for 24-25. Committee will recall that the 24-25 business plan was approved by Council in August. For 23-24, there were a number of notable key achievements delivered, and this is testament to the flexibility, expertise, experience and resilience of our many dedicated staff. Achievements included the significant strides in improving the Council's digital infrastructure, including improvements in IT security and ongoing work to ensure public sector compliance. Preparatory work was undertaken for the migration to Microsoft 365, as well as an overarching security programme aimed at enhancing our cyber preparedness. Online forms for request and release were developed and made available to ratepayers to make it easier to apply. Innovative approaches to internal communications were expanded with multimedia channels, including Chief Executive video updates and digital communication screens across council offices. Collaboration with community-based events, including Armed Forces Day and Freedom of Club Manager. And in terms of portfolio actions, a number of these have been fully or almost completed. And these include plans and processes being in place for managing contest risks, ensuring statutory plans for resilience were in place, supporting consultation and engagement as part of the budget process, continued implementation of the approved mainstreaming equalities and diversity report, developing the new wellbeing local outcomes improvement plan, developing and implementing the interim workforce plan, successful preparedness and delivery in relation to the general election, continued progress to achieve Armed Forces Silver accreditation, reviewing, streamlining and integrating the performance management framework, and continued work on refreshing our digital and ICT strategy. There's also a number of policies developed and refreshed. These include the Customer Charter, the Unacceptable Use Policy, the Whistleblowing Policy, and completion of the Financial Regulations Review. We do, as highlighted earlier, acknowledge that a number of areas have either not progressed or have not commenced as has been planned. The reasons of these have been outlined, and these have also been carried forward into our 24-25 plan. In relation to key performance indicators for the Directorate, there's been significant improvement on the number of up-to-date risk assessments. There's been improvement in the percentage of council inquiries responded to within timescales, and there's been improvement in the percentage of complaints closed within timescale, as well as a reduction in the number of complaints upheld or partially upheld. But we are not complacent. We do also recognise that there are areas where improvements are required, including a response time for MP, MSP inquiries and our FOIs. In addition, work continues to address, in line with council procedures, the number of FTE days lost arising as a result of sickness. In conclusion, whilst the Partnership and Performance portfolio has made significant achievements in service delivery, transformation and operational improvement, ongoing workforce capacity issues, recruitment challenges and heightened risks, particularly in cybersecurity and service delivery, require continued focus. Committee are asked to note, comment on and challenge the findings in the report, and senior managers from across the Directorate, both here and online, and myself are happy to take any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chris. Do you have any questions? Councillor Coyne?
Page 175, 3.24. Not all of the intended actions within the plan have been delivered to date, and year-end slippage is likely for some projects with these actions being taken forward. It's all very well taking it forward, but if you've got a capacity issue that prevented them happening in the first place, it's also going to prevent them in the second place. How will you get around that problem?
So a number of, obviously the interim workforce plan, we've got the workforce plan coming up as well, but we've also, as part of the 24-25 business plan, recognised the capacity issues. So we've been less ambitious as we have been, so we've scaled back in terms of what we're looking to achieve over the next coming months.
Thank you. If I can move on to the page 182, talking about the complaints received, or the FOIs and things like that. Sorry, FOIs. Our freedom of information requests and requests for information from MPs, MSPs, councillors, whatever, are they prioritised or dealt with purely in the order in which they come in? There are some of them that must be more important than others and need attention before something more trivial. Do you have a prioritisation system? And if you don't, should you have one?
Every council inquiry is treated the same priority council issue as our MP and MSP inquiries. Obviously, I think probably MSP and MP inquiries may trump council inquiries, but in terms of FOIs, that's outlined in statute in terms of 20 days, which are required to carry on. So they will always take precedent because we have specific time frames in which to address those.
Didn't really answer my question. Do you prioritise them?
So the priorities for FOIs are as when they come in, the clock starts when that FOI is received. We have 20 days in which to respond to that. So they are prioritised from the date they're received.
Right, but you wouldn't select the important ones first because if there's something hanging back in them. And what's the penalty for not making the 20-day deadline?
So the applicant for the FOI can ask for, I think it's an appeal that can go up to the Scottish Information Commissioner. Evelyn Patterson, our governance officer, will probably have more information on that. But the Scottish Information Commissioner can come in and look at intervention. And we are actually under intervention by the Scottish Information Commissioner, who are coming in because we have been late. Our performance, whatever wise, is poor. And we're actively looking at improving that. We're working positively with the Scottish Information Commissioner on how we can improve that.
So prioritisation would actually make the position worse potentially by giving you, if you were dealing with them quickly, if you had some old ones that needed to be dealt with, but they weren't very important. If you don't deal with them, they're going to be late. Am I making my point or not?
So I can understand where you're coming from in terms of the priorities. But as I say, the clocks, so everyone, if 10 came in on the same day, they all equally assign that same priority because they all still have that same deadline. There will be more complex ones, so officers will be assigned answering those. So the officers may prioritise when they receive them because they'll understand that out of the 10, 3 can be answered within a couple of days, but there are 8 that actually need specific more time there, so the officer will identify the priority to those. But when it comes in specifically, when the time is received, the clock starts.
Nearly forgot. I noticed, and I've mentioned this before, in the next section, where we're looking, for example, page 192. It's just a really good example of it. We have 2 boxes at the top of each section. One is called ID and title, and the other one is called potential effect. Now, I think you know what I'm going to say. Somebody's been lazy and not tried to distill what the subject's about, to make it easy for councillors to quickly leap onto what it is that the thing's about. It's just a lazy repetition of the information that's in the potential effect. Have you any plans to correct that misdemeanour?
Well, Councillor Coyne, you will recall the business plan that went up to Council in August that he's approved, and that change has been made.
Thank you for the questions, Councillor Coyne. In terms of instances of fraud detected on page 180, it noted that there were no incidences of fraud reported, and I know we've discussed previously that there isn't a fraud officer within council at the moment, so I was just wondering if that lack of kind of reporting of fraud was maybe to do with that, or whether, in most places I would think there would be cases of fraud that would be reported at particular times, and I wondered if there's any plans to bring in a fraud officer or other strategies to tackle that.
Chair, yes, I would agree that not having a fraud officer is probably contributing to us not maybe knowing in some areas where fraud may be happening, but I would give assurances in terms of, for example, in our revenue section, the benefits area, they undertake a number of checks in terms of prevention of fraud. We also participate in the National Fraud Initiative, and that's kicking off this year again, as we work with internal audit on that and providing that information. But yes, we have highlighted the risk of not having a fraud officer. We're looking at actively as part of the budget in terms of resourcing that. We've engaged with Falkirk initially, in initial discussions. They have a fraud team and how we might be able to utilise that, whether or not we resource that from the CLAC's perspective and support that internal audit approach. But yeah, we recognise the risk there and we are taking on that.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. This one is on page 6. We were talking about Clackmannshire Council taking the lead in the development of our regional national power outage framework. It's great that we do things, but capacity comes up all the time, and I'm just wondering, are we getting paid for this work, or how is it the smallest mainland local authority ends up being a lead? And okay, it says regional there, but even within the Forth Valley, how is it we become the lead in that issue? And do we have the resources to spare in doing this sort of thing?
Yes, thanks for your question, Councillor Balsillie. So the partnership refers to the local resilience partnership that's in place to ensure coordination of planning and efforts around the civil contingencies duties. Now, there are some plans which are done at a Forth Valley level, and the one that you're referring to there in terms of national power outage is one of them. There is also one around fuel resilience, and there is also one around care for people. So that the way that we managed that was each of the councils took the supporting, along with partners, including other Cat 1 responders, we took one each. So it was a fair allocation of that work. So that work has now been completed, as has the fuel one by Falkirk and the care for people one by Stirling.
Okay, thanks for that. I think that it was a sort of divvying up in terms of, we probably didn't go in terms of how resources are normally proportionate, but if it's 3 issues, I can understand that. I suppose the next thing is just a kind of statement. The button of freedom of information requests. Have you had any thought in terms of how we tackle the increasing number and the burden of responding to these? If you could, similar to Councillor Coyne's sort of question, how are we prioritising these?
So, as I indicated, we're working with the Scottish Information Commissioner, who are coming in. We're identifying an action plan. We're undertaking, our governance team have training being scheduled to undertake that. The directors are now actively on top of our directing FOIs when they come in. There's weekly updates. We have a new FOI system that's going to support us in doing that. But the intervention should be seen as a positive approach in terms of the improvements to that. When we met with the Information Commissioner, they said themselves that, for example, the Scottish Government used to be very clear in terms of FOI responses, and in their intervention they're now almost 100% on top of it. So we would hope to be in the same position in terms of looking at how we can work with the Information Commissioner to improve our responses and improve our approaches to FOIs.
Okay, and then in page 12, we've got a green tick against Achieved Armed Forces Service accreditation, but in fact we didn't submit that application. So should that green not be a yellow? And when do you anticipate us being able to submit an application?
Yes, it shouldn't be a green tick, it should be a yellow. The criteria for application is due out in the next few weeks, as I understand. Councillor Balsillie has changed since previous, so we'll need to review the criteria when that comes out, with applications due at the end of the year. And
when do we anticipate, do we anticipate submitting an application? Yeah. Do we anticipate submitting the silver application next year for the deadline? Yeah. Is that yes?
Sorry, I was waiting on you turning your microphone. Yes, it is. Yes,
I thought I'd get used to these things. Right, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Coyne.
It's a minor Mori one, the same page 13, sorry. The last two yellows, should the first not be a green as it was completed and the second one not be a red as it's not been started? Who's in charge of the stickers around here? That's what we want.
Okay, thank you. Very happy to move this paper. Again, I realise the amount of work that goes into the reports that are brought to committee. But I realise it's not just the work in writing the reports, it's the power of work that's going behind the scenes as well. And I realise on a very small team with limited capacity, you do a lot. Particularly with going through this massive change to 365, which is not an easy undertaking at any time for anybody, and that moving forward. But I was also really encouraged to see, business continuity and emergency planning emerging quite strongly, because I think we know just from recent events and so on that this is really, really important, and it's really good to see the council taking that so seriously, and that was actually done before, so it was last year. So it's been great that we've been ahead of making sure that we've got these plans in place, which is excellent. And we know there's areas that haven't progressed yet, but I think in view of the fact that we're going through the 365 migration and all the other work that's involved, I think that's understandable, and I'm encouraged to hear that there'll be much more in the next year's report in terms of what's moved forward. It's always difficult for us in Audit and Scrutiny because we get a retrospective report, but you know, it's good to hear that things have moved forward, but I don't fail to recognise in any way the power of work that's been done by the team. So thanks to the whole team, and you know, we really appreciate the work that's been done. There's a second. Talks.
I'm happy to second.
You can fight over second.
Ladies first. I'll third.
Okay, so we're open to debate. Would anyone like to debate the paper? No, I think you're benefiting from the near lunch phase. So I think that's quite good. So is everybody happy to note? Okay, so we'll take a half-hour break for lunch, which means we'll be back at 20 past, and then we'll move on to our audit section.
And wait.